Joe Rogan weighed in again on the United States case against Julian Assange. Let's take a listen.
He exposed horrific crimes. He exposed things that were deeply that the United States citizens are deeply opposed to, and the fact that that is something that you in this country can be prosecuted for, that they would try to extradite you and drag you from another country. They'd kick him out of the embassy and bring him back to the United States to try him for that. It seems like we're talking about some kangaroo court. It seems like we're talking about some dictatorship where, you have these no protection of freedom of speech, no protection under the First Amendment, no protection under the rights of the press.
Twitter user Lenny Breitman responded with some analysis we wanted to discuss. He said, quote, media elites despise Julian Assange because he engaged in journalism they're not allowed to touch. They despise Joe Rogan because he's allowed to call them out on it. They're trapped in an unsustainable system that's about to collapse. Joining our conversation is host of the Katie Halper Show and co-host of Useful Idiots podcast, Katie Halper. Katie, yeah, I always say this is Joe Rogan's world. We're just living in it. And people can either kind of realize that a little bit and realize that he does speak the voice of the people by and large, that he shares the sentiment. This is why I think combined he has a larger audience than all the cable networks combined. And he is speaking the truth on this, that Julian Assange exposed something the media elites, the elites in general, don't want exposed. Joe Rogan calls them out on it, and they go after both.
Right.
I mean, what do you think of it?
I mean, first of all, I think it's very important for Joe Rogan to come on either the Katie Halper Show or Useful Idiots. I know you love having Matt Taibbi on your show. We love it. So come on. And Matt Taibbi is not endorsing my pathetic request. He has too much dignity for that, but I'm going to do it. But no, I think it's true. I mean, I think there's obviously a difference in terms of the prices they're paying. I mean, I think Joe Rogan would be the first person to admit that, right? He's not withering away, rotting in jail. He's not been separated from his family, his loved ones. He's not been used also to kind of drive a nail through the heart of free press. But I do think that it's a very scary thing that you have people like Joe Rogan and you don't have people like New York Times journalists, Washington Post journalists, including journalists who were spied on in the Ecuadorian embassy when they visited Julian Assange, that you don't have those people speaking out as the state basically tries to successfully persecutes and prosecutes Julian Assange and successfully attacks rule of law, free speech, of course, the Fourth Estate, which somehow was bad when Trump did it. But when Biden does it, it's okay. I'm not sure how that works. But I think that the one thing that, Lenny Breitman says that I wish were true, and I'm not sure it is, though, is that they're trapped in an unsustainable system that's about to collapse. And he's talking about the media elite system. I don't know if it's about to collapse. I mean, it certainly has collapsed in terms of its credibility, any pretense of ethics or morality, any pretext of responsibility or justice. I mean, it's absolutely pathetic, and it's honestly disgusting watching journalists remain silent about something that could land them in jail. The cowardice or the just burying the head in the sand is just, it's a dark chapter in American history. And
yeah, I'm glad you said that. I agree. I was going to say that too. Yeah, that's the part of the analysis that is wrong, that it is inevitable, that is all going to come crashing down, that's happening, that yes, there are cracks, there are, alternative places where you can go for principled information and reporting on threats to free speech that isn't filtered through a mainstream agenda. But the mainstream is still very, very powerful, very entrenched, still well regarded by the people who actually control the levers of power. It doesn't matter. I'm not sure they're outnumbered. They might be outnumbered, but it doesn't totally matter if they are outnumbered because they have the power. So when I see people, on social media or people watch the show, our audience, Rogan's audience, your audience, they get so much right, but they're being a little hopeful actually when they're saying, and it's all collapsing. It's all the mask is slipping. That's all happening. We're not quite there yet.
Right. It would be great. I mean, and I think that another issue is that you have a great self-selecting audience, and I'm so grateful, obviously, for the audience that we have. But you also have the people who kind of most need to be woken up. Those people are the least likely to be exposed to alternative media, independent media, because they just don't seek it out. So it is a cycle of people having blinders on. And I just really think, I mean, I've made this point before, but guys, wake up, okay? Media people, wake up. This could be you. You don't, I mean, I think maybe they have some humility. They realize they never do anything as courageous and significant as Assange does, so they don't think they're going to get in trouble. But welcome back, another Republican president. Why wouldn't he do that against you guys for doing anything? And also, I mean, it leaves me a little dumbfounded, the fact that Obama decided not to indict Assange. Then Trump comes in, and Trump and Pompeo are obsessed with basically neutralizing Assange. And we know from reports by Max Blumenthal and reports by Michael Isikoff, we know that the CIA discussed kidnapping and murdering Assange, okay? And then Biden comes in, and instead of returning to the rule of law, a sense of justice, a sense of fairness, a sense of respect for the fourth estate, he takes the Trumpian path. I mean, don't be confused. All my resistance liberals out there, you should be up in arms that the president is going with Trump on this, and he is rejecting Obama's position on this. And that is a scary, scary thing.
And I also just want to point out that journalists aren't just remaining silent. They're actually speaking out against Julian Assange. Maria Ressa, who just won the Nobel Prize for journalism, actually, when asked about Julian Assange, basically said he's not a journalist. She's like, a journalist actually goes through the information and sifts through it, and that's not what he did. Yeah. And, and it's like, okay, maybe you don't want to call him a journalist, Maria, but you certainly could call him a publisher. And is it okay to then go after the publisher for for publishing these documents?
So let's go after the New York Times. Let's go after the Washington Post. Let's go after Guardian, Der Spiegel, País. But also, you know what? I think that this journalist you just referred to, I think most journalists consider Daniel Ellsberg a hero. And if they do, I would just invite them to listen to Daniel Ellsberg and not the cowardly journalists who let themselves be spied on and do nothing about it. Because we know of an Italian journalist who's done great work on this, Stefania Morizzi, who is doing a FOIA to look at how she and other journalists were spied on in the embassy. But these cowardly journalists who, I mean, I don't wish ill on anyone, but I kind of like to swap some of them in for Julian Assange. If we're going to have some journalists locked up, free Assange and send the cowards in there. Send the cowards in there who are complicit in this persecution and undermining of the First Amendment. Again, don't want that, but if we had to, if the only way we can free Assange is by replacing him, I have a list of people we could put in there. And
prisoner exchange.
Yeah, prisoner exchange, exactly. I'll be the negotiator. I'm happy to do that. But so listen to Daniel Ellsberg. I mean, we think this guy is a traitor. The other thing is that the language about this is so stupid. How is Julian Assange a traitor? He's not even a U.S. citizen.
Right.
Besides the fact that it's not treasonous. But you guys are just so dumb, some of you out there. That's why I'm giving you the chance to listen to your guy Obama and listen to your guy Ellsberg. And Biden, you could also do the same thing. Instead of having blood on your hands, both literal blood, and we know that Assange has had a stroke. And we know that a British court determined that the reason he couldn't be extradited was because his safety, his own physical safety. We also know that I want to give a big shout out to Nils Melzer, who is not a political person at all. He is the special rapporteur on torture for the UN. And this is someone who was so disgusted by the treatment of Julian Assange. He went in there, he determined he had been tortured under the legal definition of torture. He went in there with medical doctors, and he wrote a book, which I highly recommend, called The Trial of Julian Assange. And he's not someone who engages in polemics, but he had to write a book. He says that this case turned him into a sort of whistleblower because he had to blow the whistle on the inaction, the corruption, the complicity of governments in the torture of Julian Assange.
Katie Halper, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
And stick around for more Rising right after this.